What is going on, Crisis Actors? It is episode 1099 of Pop Culture Crisis. My name is Brett. I hope you guys are all having a fantastic day today. Yes, episode 199, not 1099 like a tax form, but 1099, which means tomorrow is episode 1100. I do hope you guys will show up for the 1100th episode. We will be going live at 2 p.m. rather than 3 p.m. to celebrate, as we always do on PCC. We celebrate on the hundreds here, and we wouldn't be here without you guys. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to Phil, who is joining me today.
What's up, everybody? How are we doing today? My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains, an anti-communist and counter-revolutionary. It's good to be here.
It's been a while.
Tomorrow is 1200 or 1200?
1100.
1100.
1100.
On a Friday too.
Yes.
Nice.
Well, it was like so now, because Mary's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have to make sure that all of the milestone episodes fall on those numbers. But theoretically, even if we'd missed the show today, it would have been Monday, and she's on Mondays. So.
But it's also a great excuse to be like, oh, no show today because Mary's not here, and so tomorrow, so it'll be Wednesday.
Guess we'll have to start it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
Surprise days off.
I do have I do have something coming up where like I have to go like far out the other direction for an appointment, where it's like it might make getting back for the show in time difficult because it's like literally past Frederick the other way. So going back this way, it's like another hour and a half by the time I'm coming back. So depending on what time you get done, it makes it very difficult if you've got a show to plan, all that stuff. It's all very boring to you guys. Don't worry. We'll make it happen. We'll make the show happen. I hope you guys, again, like I said, are having a fantastic day today. I do also want to remind you guys that not just the show on Friday, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., but on Saturday at 7 p.m. on the Timcast Discord, I am doing a bonus PCC episode. We do those shows twice a month. We're going to hang out. We can talk about whatever it is that you guys want to talk about. I'll see if I can throw together a couple of stories, something to get into perhaps that can't wait till Monday. But otherwise, it's just a good chance to hang out with you guys and hear what your guys' thoughts are. And I always really enjoy those shows. And I promise I will not let it fall by the wayside like I did the last time, where we did it at 11 p.m. rather than 7 p.m. because I just simply was so busy that day that I forgot. I have got it in my calendar. We will be there on Saturday at 7 p.m. So I am looking forward to that. I hope you guys will all join us. So what are we getting into today? Well, it's the story that never ends in a lot of ways. Homer may have written the Odyssey however many years ago, and in current year, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey seems to be omnipresent in the news cycle when it comes to pop culture stories. What we are going to be talking about today is the fact that Elon Musk is saying that he's going to make a $100 million he's going to make an AI movie, an AI Odyssey movie with Grok Imagine by the end of the year. He has also said he's down to fund a $100 million Mel Gibson Odyssey movie, to which I would say, like, maybe you have to ask Mel Gibson first if he actually wants to do that.
The soundtrack of that is all going to be voice messages left by Mel Gibson.
That will they'll use the audio from that to do the voices of the gods.
Yeah.
That would be perfect. So we'll get into that story. Also, Olivia Wilde is calling out Elon Musk. She's saying that he is perpetuating incel culture and says that she felt gross for visiting the SpaceX plant a couple of years ago, which, of course, you guys know what that means. It means that I used to like him when he agreed with me. Now he theoretically doesn't agree with me. Therefore, he must be a bad person. So we will get into that. Also, there is updates, small updates.
Isn't Olivia Wilde like the ugly Penny Lane?
I don't know what that means.
The Penny Lane, the SI model.
I would have to look at a photo of them side by side.
I feel like she is.
Olivia Wilde was very successful in the mid-2000s. She was on the show House. She played the character of 13.
Yeah, okay. Oh, well, she should shut up. Anyways.
Fair enough. Well, you can say that again once we get into the topic. Okay. So we'll talk about that. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Paramount merger because, look, there are endless attempts to quash this thing from various different groups. Right now, the EU has approved the merger. The FCC, the federal government, has approved the merger, but 12 individual states, now what do they call this? They call it state attorneys general. Is that how they say it?
Yeah, state attorneys general.
I so much would rather say state attorney generals, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. 12 different state attorneys general have put a stop to that by filing an injunction. It has gone to court. We'll get into a little bit with that because I don't believe that this is going to get quashed. I think it's going to go through. And I think that all of us here who work adjacent to the political space know the reason why they want to prevent this merger from going through. And I'll give you a hint. It ain't got nothing to do with Paramount having access to Warner Brother movies. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got everything to do with CNN. They don't want to lose access to another propaganda network. So we'll talk about it. Also, if you guys remember who Courtney Stodden was, she's famous for being married to actor Josh Hutcherson. He was 51 and she was 16, and it was a very big story in 2011.
It's also illegal.
The parents gave permission.
Oh, okay.
Which is what made it even creepier and weirder. Was
he writing checks to the parents, you think?
He was an actor. He's famous for playing the character of Toombs on The X-Files. And she became a reality TV star, and it became what you'd consider to be a circus show because she had a ton of plastic surgery done. It was very indicative of where the culture was at that. Even in 2011, she has since come out. She is now an advocate to put an end to the concept of the child bride here in America. She wants to make it illegal for things like this to even be possible. I think most people would agree that that does seem like a fantastic idea, but she's in the news because Jason Alexander, who everybody knows as George Costanza from Seinfeld, did a skit with her in 2011 that was considered and was inappropriate for somebody underage. And she was 17 at the time. He has come out and apologized. I don't know what is to be gained from apologizing because she since asked for more from him.
Oh, she's asking for... Wait. He apologized and then she says she wants more?
Basically now she's saying, well, then now, but you could also do this. Like, in this case, donate to charities.
See, I hate the whole topic. Right, I don't like Jason
bad actors on all sides.
Yeah, it's all bad. Everything. We'll talk about it, but everything about it is bad and gross.
All right, we got that. Also, Phil is going to fill us in on how Ultron has been brought to the real world because an AI was in a training scenario and it escaped.
It's true. OpenAI had a model that basically was in a sandbox where it's supposed to be limited. It's not supposed to be able to access the outside world, and it escaped the sandbox through multiple zero-day exploits. So a zero-day exploit is one that is built in the first day. So like in the basic programming of whatever software or whatever, the bug is there right when it's released. And so this particular AI found the bug and it escaped, and it actually managed to get onto the internet, which this is why I make the comparison to Ultron. Now, thankfully, it wasn't as smart as Ultron or as capable as Ultron, but this is something worth talking about, or at least worth being aware of. And I, as a very pro AI guy, am not going to just start saying, "Oh, we're all cooked. Throw all the computers into the ocean, and we should all go back to using just sticks to start fires."
It's so funny because there was I have to mention person of interest because of the connection to AI, but there is a point when Harold is training the AI in the show where basically the AI wants something, Harold says no, and it turns on the fire suppression system and starts lying. And he immediately bricks the entire system, and his partner says, "Why did you do that?" He goes, because it asked a question. He goes, "No, because it lied." Yeah. And that was terrifying.
So there's I was dealing with Tank, my AI agent last night. There was a problem. I asked it a question while we were at on IRL, and there was no answer. And then I was like, Tank. Couldn't get in touch with him. So when I got home, I got on the computer, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And it took him a second to reply. And then I was trying to get him to diagnose what was going on, and he starts giving me solutions, not telling me. And then he starts implementing the solution. So I had to slow him down and be like, "Tank, did I ask you to do that?"
Yeah.
"No, okay, all right." And I was like, "Tank, just answer this question. Can you fix the problem?" Because I asked him, I was like, "Can you fix it?" And he'd just jump into the fix. And so I'm just like, okay, this is kind of a pain in the nuts. But that is one thing that, AI, at least older versions, because I don't run the frontier models, they're way too expensive. I'm running on, I think I run on Haiku, which is like 3 generations old. Okay. But that's because it gets too pricey. And they are getting better. They don't do this kind of stuff now on the frontier models, but Like, you know, as time progresses, like they are becoming more capable. They're extremely capable, particularly if you give them access to things like the internet or things like your credit cards and stuff. So there's stuff that people have to be aware of and be mindful of.
Yep. All right, we got a $20 super chat here before we get started from Shane H. Wilder. Thank you so much. Says, Mel Gibson ain't got time for that. He's working on the resurrection of the Christ and working on a mini-series about the 1565 Siege of Malta, where 700 of the Knights of St. John, Knights Hospitaller, held off 40,000 Ottomans. Yeah, like I guess let's just use it. Thank you so much for that, Shane. Let's just use that as an opportunity to get into this topic to start. So right now, as it stands, the Odyssey is being predicted to only drop between 40 and 50% in its second week. It's going to make another $75 to $80 million here domestically, and currently sitting at $328 million at the box office in just the first 7 days. The people mentioning this are saying 6 days. It's really 7 because it premiered. It had Wednesday screenings and it had Thursday screenings. So we'll say 7 days, $328 million. There's been a lot of what you'd call hemming and hawing from conservatives who are coping because they expected or they thought that this movie was going to bomb. I think what this movie has proven is the power of the normie more than anything else. They don't care about Snow White. They do care about this. And I think it's really as simple as that in a lot of ways. But one of the people that was the most outspoken about this adaptation when it first started was, of course, Elon Musk. And what Elon Musk said was obviously that he felt that Christopher Nolan was desecrating this story for the sake of winning an Oscar. You can go and watch my video on Oscar requirements where I talk about why he's technically wrong about that, even if in spirit he's not off base. But besides the point, what he's saying now is that before the end of this year, they will use Grok Imagine to make a quote-unquote historically accurate version of the Odyssey that is true to Homer's work. He has also said that he is down to fund a $100 million version if it's made by Mel Gibson. The thing is that Mel Gibson has created a lot of subversive art. I would consider The Passion of the Christ to be subversive art. In the Hollywood ecosystem, I do believe that you would consider that a form of subversion, given the fact that Hollywood has a very strong anti-Christian sentiment. But the thing is he created that because Christianity is important to him. It's close to his heart. It matters to him. I can't speak as to whether or not Mel Gibson cares about the stories of Homer, about the Iliad or the Odyssey. But I think that this is more of a general problem. Maybe, Phil, you can tell me because you're an artist, you're a musician. You make art not just for the sake of politics, but you make art for the sake of creating art itself. I feel like reactionary art will always have a very low ceiling when it comes to the audience that's going to find it. And it's going to always matter more to entrenched culture warriors rather than normal people. Yeah,
look, I mean, out of all of the, songs that I've written that we've released, right? They're the ones that connect with people are the ones that tell a story they can relate to. So sure, political art is out there, commentary art is out there, but very rarely does it actually make a significant impact with the population, right? And by very rarely, I mean when you compare all of the music out there, because sure, people can go ahead and say, well, Rage Against the Machine and this band and this song and punk rock and blah, blah, blah. These are all, based in politics and fair point. That's true. But then you think about how many artists are actually out there and how many different genres and how many topics are actually covered. Like I would venture a guess that like 75% of all songs ever written with lyrics and stuff are about relationships with other people.
It feels that way, right?
Yeah, whether they're relationships with parents, the way that people feel about their parents, or family members, or the big one, which is romance, right? So it's relationships, broken hearts, or I'm in love with you, blah blah blah. That's probably that might even be 75% might even be conservative.
That seems low to me.
Yeah, it might be. So the idea that political art is something that is really compelling to most people, I don't think that's true at all.
It's also less universal because political art means that you have a position that you're holding, which means that you're automatically excluding not just the people that don't care about political art, but the people that disagree with you.
Yeah, like, I mean, look, I've written a fair amount of songs that are lightly political or touch on political topics, and a handful that are like outwardly political, right? Like probably 5 or 6 in my entire career. The songs that people care about, they're all relationship songs. Even the songs like This Calling and 6, which are pure metal songs, right? They're still, if you read the lyrics, it's like, oh, that's kind of about a relationship, or that I can relate to that in a, or whatever. And for me personally, when I wrote them, I got the ideas because of relationship stuff. And again, this is songs like 6 that everyone was playing on Guitar Hero that was like a pure metal song from beginning to end. And This Calling, which is, arguably the song that put us on the map, that starts out with double bass and a scream and blah blah blah, and even those songs, those are about relationship. And the same thing with like our biggest song is probably still 2 weeks, and What If I Was Nothing, again, clearly about relationships. So people want to identify with other people. They want to be understood, and they want to feel like other people understand them. So.
And in songs about relationships, it's more universal. Like not everybody is going to have an opinion on politics, especially not in current year. It seems like there's a large proponent of people who are actively seeking to avoid it on purpose, just because it seems so depressing in a lot of ways. But everybody can correlate to songs about love or commitment, because whether it's because you found it or haven't found it, it speaks to the human experience.
Yeah, and I think that it is worth saying, like, it's more than just, my girlfriend broke up with me. Yeah. Songs about relationships with people and parents, or like mom and dad and stuff like that. Those are another big part of it. Is like, people, especially young people, they feel like they're going through things alone. And then a common trope is, I didn't understand my parents, but then I realized that they had, my best interests at heart the whole time, and thank you. As you mature, that kind of happens a lot, and you hear that a lot in country songs and stuff like that. But it's all the most compelling stuff to people, like just universally, are about some kind of relationship with another person. So that's part of the reason why I'm so like white-pilled on AI, and how I don't think that AI is just going to take over and blah blah blah. I do think that AI can mimic relationships really well, and there are going to be a segment of the population that are going to supplement real, wholesome, personal relationships with another person by having them with AI, because I do think that it's going to become possible. But I still think that most people are going to seek out actual relationships with real people still.
We got 20 here from Brian Bledsoe. Says, I'm so tired of Hollywood's creative liberties when it comes to adaptations that I would like to input whatever source material into AI and say, make a live action movie. It'll be 10 hours, fine, split it into 4 parts. I disagree. If I'm being completely honest, as important as annoying as creative liberties are, there are aspects of filmmaking that I guess you could try and prompt your way to, but in a lot of ways, okay, so when me and Kino Corner were talking about the Odyssey, we talked about one of the things that the movie suffers from is that it lacks some creative flourish when it comes to its camera work, because IMAX cameras are so gigantic, they can weigh up to 100 pounds, that really unique and comprehensive camera movements are sometimes out of the question. And I like the ability for a director to be able to show with their technique, with their cinematographers, an aspect of the story that isn't strictly adherence to the text. Okay. And this is an example I always give you. And this shot has stuck with me for years. And it's got nothing to do really with the movie, but it's an idea of why the story isn't always as important as how it's brought together in its vision. In the movie GoldenEye, at the very beginning, when James Bond, after he does the dam jump, which set a world record, by the way, that guy who did that, he breaks into the facility, and he comes out of the first door, points his gun down, and he walks down this stair and around a corner, and you see the camera pull back and reveal basically what is like a light from a doorway. And you see Bond's eyes directly enter into the frame, of this door light, of this light source right here. And unless you're telling me that you yourself are going to prompt that into the telling of whatever story it is that you want told, as important as story accuracy is, the ability to create something beautiful with more than just the text is also important, which is why making a good movie is so damn difficult to begin with. There is so much that goes into it that, you know, one thing you could say if you are on the side that really hated the casting for this movie is that they took something right off the bat from the beginning that they knew would be divisive, and they shot themselves in the foot and put themselves at a disadvantage. Now that disadvantage seems to be being proven wrong, as the movie's doing quite well and is going to have, at least in week 2, a great hold from week 1 to week 2. They took an opportunity to create a full-fledged product that has flourishes in every aspect. It's casting, it's writing, it's directing, and it's cinematography, and they took one of those aspects out to begin with. I will not deny that casting isn't important. Obviously, inspired casting is one of the things that people believe to be the most important things in Hollywood. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark is something to consider to be inspired casting. So important so that they got him coming back. They dragged him out of Marvel retirement to play a different character in Doomsday. It's just, I think a lot of it is that there's just so much that goes into making a movie that we kind of take for granted that it's more than just a rigid adherence to the source material. But, well, before we move on, I am going to show you this thing where Elon responded about this 3-minute dialogue scene from a Grok Imagine version of the Odyssey, built by this guy named Heavy Pulp. So let's watch this here.
I must
be free.
You mean some other thing?
So, I look, technologically speaking, it's impressive, I guess, but I get nothing from that. Now, to be fair, that's a trailer, so it's, of course, it feels like a trailer, but I don't feel anything when I watch something like that. The thing about great filmmaking is, and why directors are so important these days, is a director can produce a singular, cohesive vision for their product, especially when it's done really, really well. What I see there looks like video game cutscenes that get thrown together for the sake of accuracy rather than story.
So, I'm going to preface this with, I don't care about Christopher Nolan's Odyssey. There was never a part of me that's like, I got to see this. There was never a part of me that said, oh my God, I don't want to see this. It just isn't on my radar. Yeah. I think that the visuals of that was really, really good. And I think that could be used as a tool to make movies. But I think that when it comes to making movies with AI, you're going to end up having people prompting scenes and then editing them as opposed to trying to prompt a whole movie. Mm-hmm. This is part of the reason why I don't think that AI is going to replace movie making. It's possible that AI replaces some actors, right? But I don't think that you're going to have everybody making their own movies and everybody's going to say, oh, you know, check out Joey's version of blah, blah, blah. Because there's just not, like, first of all, everybody doesn't have the ability to edit things together and make coherent stories. And I think that there's always going to be people that are better at it than other people. The idea that you can just prompt the computer and it's going to produce something as good as someone else, I think that it's going to take people that know how to use the tools. So that's a part of the reason why, again, I'm very, very white-pilled on AI, is because I look at it like a tool, not actually like, you know, the whole thing, right? Like there's all sorts of steps that go into making a movie. And I don't think that you're just going to be able to say, make me a movie that's blah, 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 and it does it all, and it's going to be satisfying. You might be able to be like, here's the scene, right? You'll take a script and plug in the scenes, and it can do the scenes, and then you edit it together. Maybe that's something that'll be possible, but like, I do understand what you're saying, where that doesn't really make you feel anything, because it seems...
And it's not just because it's well-made trailers make you feel something.
Yeah, and that's part of the, I think that's part of the editing, right? Like you get the content right, you get the scene shot right, and then the editor puts it together, the music's put in.
You ever see Sicario?
Yeah, I've seen Sicario. Not in a long time, but yeah.
The scene at the border is a master class in tension.
Yep.
And what I mean by that is it's actually quite extensive as they're driving through the town. But there's a bit at the border where it cuts to an overhead shot and you hear a dog barking. And the music is growing more and more tense. And the barking of the dog continues and continues and continues. And it's there to signify something, danger. Something bad is going to happen. And I just don't know, like, unless the idea here is that somebody is going to be so good at prompting that they're going to know to add that in there, perhaps that will happen. I don't know. But I know that for that to work, that had to be storyboarded. It had to be planned out ahead of time. Sound design had to be done in post-production. The same thing is true when they did the movie Heat, when they used actual microphones in the cityscape to capture the sound of the rifles, which is why it sounds so much better than any other movie that shows, even John Wick.
Yep.
The unbelievably what would be like the reverb
Yep.
and the way that it disorients you is unbelievably accurate, and it's there because an auteur came out and said we need to do this to bring this to life, and I just don't know if I buy that it's worth it to try and capture us, and that's a modern story. Trying to capture this for something as old and as well known as the Odyssey in current year, it feels like it reeks of culture war nonsense more than an innate desire to create. You can criticize Christopher Nolan's vision of the Odyssey. Certainly, even Emily Wilson, who did the feminist translation for which he used as the basis of this movie, is criticizing what he's done. But Christopher Nolan had to have a vision for this movie that he wanted to bring to life. And you guys, if you watch my review, you know, I don't think it hit the mark. Not inherently. I don't think it was that great. If I had to rewatch a Nolan movie in the last 5 to 10 years, I'd rewatch Tenet all the way before I'd rewatch this, and I'd rewatch Oppenheimer before I would rewatch this movie. But the idea that on the cultural battleground, we're going to win with AI, that's not how you win the hearts and minds of the normies. And it feels like somebody like Elon Musk, you know, it's not our job to tell him how to spend his money. But Mike Harlow pointed out, he said, instead of giving one person $100 million to make one movie, give culturally subversive artists who actually want to make art each $1 million to make short films and try to make real inroads with storytelling. We've already seen that can work. Obsession made $400 million on $750,000 budget. It can be done. So all my point is that this feels superfluous, and it feels like a bit of a distraction when there's actual ways in which conservatives could start moving towards real art. Scott Derrickson, who directed the first Doctor Strange movie, and he directed Black Phone, said clearly Elon Musk doesn't know shit about cinema, and he's stopped reading in his 20s. His opinions on art are worthless. Well, I think that also reeks of somebody who's politically inclined and has their opinions there because he's not because he actually gives a crap about the Odyssey as a story, but because he doesn't like Elon Musk.
Yep.
The same is true of Coleman Domingo, who said it'll be whiter than Christmas at Cracker Barrel. You can't make a historically accurate version of something that's made the F up to begin with. Well, I would love to see, I know it's a tired example, but until we get, Mel Gibson making Black Panther, we'll have that discussion when it comes out. Oh, by the way, before we move on, I do want to mention this because I do think that it's funny. So as you guys know, this movie was created around the Emily Wilson translation of the Odyssey, which is considered a feminist telling of the story, but she has her own problems with it. She doesn't feel like it captured the character of Odysseus all that well at all. This is what she said. The film presents an Odysseus who feels very bad about things that he's done in war and is struggling to process them in a very modern, psychiatrized way and needs drugs to do so. He seems to feel bad about being a warrior, and we never actually see him go do that much warrioring. Nolan makes the protagonist a likable, all-American hero. Homer's Odysseus wants glory, and he wants to get spoils from the sack of a city. I kept looking in vain for a sense that this was a film about glory. This is a film with an interest in shame, but I don't think it has an interest in glory.
I mean, I guess, but I haven't watched it. I don't care about her opinion. I'm not particularly interested in a feminist retelling of the Odyssey. So, I mean, her critiques.
It is a true thing, though. Like when I watched the movie, and then Kino Corner kind of made it best known to me when he talked about it. He said, like, the idea of PTSD and the horrors of war is a very modern concept, and in that time period, it wouldn't have been the way they thought. Much in the same way that the feminist stuff, the quasi-feminist stuff from Penelope, the idea of a woman being upset or having questions as to why she's not allowed to take the throne simply wouldn't have been something they thought about.
Yeah.
So it's very modern.
Yeah, a modern critique of a classic. Cool, thanks.
Exactly. All right, let's move on. We're not just done with we're done with the Odyssey, but we're not quite done with Elon Musk. So, because while I disagree with his take for what he wants to do by making a AI version of the Odyssey, I don't think anybody can really deny the fact that Elon Musk has done a lot of good for humanity, whether you want to talk about SpaceX, whether you want to talk about any of, Tesla, any of the things that he's created that has advanced the human race. I think that is, unless you're politically, extremely politically biased, I don't think that that's in question for any normal person. Yep. But one person that does call that into question is Olivia Wilde, who says that she deeply resents Elon Musk after meeting him years ago. And wouldn't you know it, here's what it is. She says that he connects incels to population collapse. This is what she said. She once toured Elon Musk's SpaceX headquarters and met the business tycoon long before he turned into a creature. That's what she called him. That's dehumanizing.
She should shut her mouth.
She says, I really resent him now. I deeply resent him. I met him many, many years ago. I think SpaceX had just built their headquarters in LA, and I got to go on tour because I wanted to see the rocket ships. He was interested in donating money to an organization that I was part of in Haiti that was building hospitals and schools. I believe he did donate a little bit of money, and that's appreciated. I was confused by him. I would never have predicted that he would go down the path that he has. He did seem really smart. So remember, when he agrees with me, he's very, very smart. Yeah. When he disagrees with me, suddenly he is no longer smart. I would err on the side of humility in these cases and assume that the person whose ideas have built rocket ships and satellites would have a reasoning for his beliefs that go beyond perhaps something that even I could understand in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, look, Olivia Wilde can have whatever opinion she wants. But the fact that she's calling, saying, that he calling the people that appreciate what he does incels, if this were 7-8 years ago, she would be singing his praises.
Yeah.
It is this is all about politics, not about anything he's actually done. He's had more creative impact on the U.S. economy than probably anyone except for maybe Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
And more people are using his products all the time, whether it be Starlink or, I mean, look, if it wasn't for Starlink, Ukraine would have a significant deficit in the would have an even more significant deficit against Russia in the Ukraine war. Right? Go ahead.
Wilde noted how Musk had perpetuated some of incel culture's more disturbing ideology, particularly the belief that men are more powerful than nature. The filmmaker noted how Musk connects to this mentality by, quote, talking about how we don't have enough people and the world is underpopulated and we could handle another billion people. Musk often expresses his belief that humanity is facing an impending underpopulation crisis, arguing it's a bigger threat than global warming. I thought it was more that the West was facing an underpopulation crisis.
I don't know what the hell she's thinking. But even still, like, the Earth can handle a lot more people, right? Like the planet. And we're basically in population decline now. So the idea that that we have a problem with the number of people talk about poverty, or they talk about people starving, famine, and not having enough to eat. That's a problem of inefficiency, not a problem of production, right? So we can make enough food to be able to feed basically everyone on Earth, but the problem is getting it from where it gets grown to where people are. There's costs in that. It's inefficient. These things like the wheat and stuff like that. There's animals that try to eat it. It gets contaminated. It'll rot and stuff like. So it's not a problem of being able to produce.
Yeah. It's
a problem of efficiency. And Elon Musk is one of the leaders in trying to reduce that efficiency through things like Tesla and other like trying to make Starlink, or not Starlink, but trying to make passage through space something that's commercially viable. Like if you can shoot a rocket into the air and have whatever the payload is be dropped somewhere else on Earth and do that in, I mean, if you've ever watched a SpaceX launch, right? It gets into orbit in like 10 minutes. You could feasibly deliver products from the United States to Africa in, 2 hours.
Yeah.
When's
he going to work on teleportation? That's what we really need. Teleportation.
I don't know if that's possible. So.
Here's the thing. She defines incels as disenfranchised, mostly white men who believe they are entitled to sex from women, and they believe that society has now robbed them, that the idea of feminism is working against nature, and that we must put back things into their correct place. Another person that she's roundly criticized was, of course, Jordan Peterson. During the press tour for Don't Worry, Darling, in fall of 2022, she garnered attention of incel culture when she said that she based Chris Pine's villain character off the author and commentator Jordan Peterson, who Wilde referred to as a pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. Peterson, of course, broke down in tears during an interview with Piers Morgan in reaction to her statement. That doesn't surprise me one bit. She defined incels at the time, blah, blah, blah. She says now that she's admitted that she might have been unfair to call Peterson a pseudo-intellectual because he obviously thinks about things deeply, but I just feel that he operates in a way that is a buttoned-up version of the type of thinkers that lead to the Andrew Tates of the world. There are different layers to that community, some of whom speak more clearly the points that they are actually filtering through. My issue with Peterson is a lot of people who are not in any way misogynist have adopted this sanitized version of the same philosophy that is rooted in deep misogyny and weaponized by the incel community. The basic point of its entitlement is is entitlement to power. There is something that many men are struggling with. I was disturbed by what I saw as this misogyny that was being weaponized and leading us to elect Donald Trump twice, and beyond that, just empower these groups of people who I think are dangerous.
Oh, you're a moron. Shut up. Like, I mean, come on. It's just ridiculous that she's filtering all this through her dislike of Donald Trump.
You think that's what it is? You think it comes back? It's all he's patient zero for a lot of this stuff?
I do think that Trump is like kind of like, that's a really good way to describe it, kind of patient zero, right? But because Jordan Peterson doesn't say anything particularly offensive. It's that people don't like that he's saying things that go against what is the popular narrative. He's saying things that are politically incorrect, but he's not saying things that are, especially the way that Peterson, approaches conversations. He's not a shock jock. He's not like just getting up there and be like, oh, society would be a whole lot better if we just repeal the 19th Amendment, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Like there is no attempt to be crass or offensive in the way that he says things. Yeah, he definitely says what he means, but he tries to do it in a way that is not intended to offend people, He feels
to me like the ultimate example you can find of somebody who's a middle of the, like if you go on your Instagram and if somebody's following Jordan Peterson, they're like, that's not indicative of them being like a right-leaning person necessarily. They're just probably a centrist in a lot of ways.
That's the thing. Like calling Peterson a right-winger is actually wrong. He's not particularly far like right-wing. It's just that he looks at traditional. He sees like the traditional ways that we have organized society as having some value.
I feel like he's more indicative of like if you find somebody and you're wondering whether they're going to be willing to have a substantive conversation with you about something, following him is maybe indicative of that's somebody that probably will at least be willing to hear out your points, as opposed to shooting them down out of completely out of hand.
Well, out of hand with no reason other than an ad hominem attack, right? So Peterson will make a point, and then she says, well, he's a misogynist. All that is saying that all that's saying is you're a bad person.
And Elon Musk is kind of like somebody you mentioned earlier, which is Jeff Bezos, where it's become a bit of a virtue signal to have negative feelings about them for the most part, because nobody in their right mind believes that every celebrity that's insulting Jeff Bezos doesn't use Amazon.
Yeah.
Like they just nobody believes that.
Yeah.
Nobody in their right mind.
I mean, Jeff Bezos has made the vast majority of Americans' lives better. And so when you're sitting there saying, oh, I hate Jeff Bezos because blah, 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 he's got a yacht and he's rich and da, da, da. It's like he literally makes the vast majority of Americans' lives better by having Amazon, by owning Amazon, by doing all the things that he's done with Amazon. He employs, hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions of people, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's making their lives better too.
Not just employing them, but the point I had to make to people when I would bring this up on IRL is like, he's not just improving the lives of people who want packages quickly. He's improving the lives of people who want to sell you packages that you can get quickly.
Absolutely.
How many people that have worked, that we've come across that have, in this space, have written books that have been self-published, that go up on Amazon where they can actually reach an audience. We had somebody last night, I believe, or one of the last few times I was on IRL, who was shouting out a book that he had just put up on Amazon, and he now has a way of reaching audiences because Amazon provides that opportunity. Before, he would have been gatekept by a publisher.
Absolutely. And to vilify, people just because they're very, very successful and had innovative ideas about whatever field they're in, like that's always motivated in jealousy. Yeah. It's always motivated in well, I didn't get to do this. I don't get the benefit. I don't get the payout, right?
I don't know if Olivia Wilde's is that. I think Olivia Wilde's is politically expedient because she's successful.
Olivia Wilde is all just it's all political correctness.
Yeah.
There's no, like, she's a woman, so there's probably a feminist angle. So she doesn't like to hear things like, oh, a lot of women would be happier being in the home than being at work. She doesn't want to hear that because she's a feminist, because, I'm a boss bitch or whatever. And so it's all motivated by that. It's all there was no serious interrogation of anything that Peterson said. It's just that it offends her sensibilities, which is why she retorted with an ad hominem.
Where do you think the culture goes once Trump leaves? Because like I said, Trump feels like, you always say that women treat the president like their dad. Yeah. Right? In this case, if Trump is patient zero for a lot of this insanity, where does the culture, because it's not just going to go away. That mindset isn't just going to go away. Mm-hmm. Where does it shift to after he leaves office? Assuming that it's like he leaves the news cycle at least a little bit. I assume he's still going to be kind of a kingmaker in politics, even if he's not in office. So we're not really going to be free of him from the news cycle. But do you think it'll be like kind of moved off onto another person?
I don't think that it's going to be. I do think that it'll be moved off on another person. And a big part of the reason why I think that is the way that people talked about Ron DeSantis once his name started getting, brought up, because he's worse than Trump, because he's got all the policies that Trump has, but he's smarter and he's a better politician, and he'll be able to enact these policies better. So it's the idea of scaring people, like, that's always going to be a thing. So like the next guy is going to be like super mega Hitler, right? Like,
it's just super Hitler now. Next it's super mega Hitler.
Exactly. It's just going to be, it's Donald Trump but worse. It's Donald Trump but worse, because they were calling Mitt Romney a Nazi. The most, again, I point to this all the time, the most milquetoast, inoffensive,
there's nothing there.
Just the most Boy Scout politician in Washington, D.C. Like, he's a Mormon and he really believes it. He's a very, very, put together, very inoffensive guy.
But he's as bad as John McCain.
And they were calling him a Nazi.
Yeah.
They were looking for every way to slime this guy. And I think that's a big part of the reason why you got Donald Trump. Like, because the Republicans had for so long been, and I'm not talking about just like the politicians, like the Republican Party had been for so long looking for the guy that they couldn't slime like that wasn't going to go to war, that wasn't going to be be able to be treated as this big boogeyman, just the most inoffensive, nice guy they could possibly come up with, and you get this Boy Scout Mitt Romney, and the Democrats still said the same things. And so I really feel like Republicans were like, all right, well, screw it. Let's send in the guy that's going to call you names, because you're gonna say these things anyways. So why not just send in the guy that's going to go ahead and tell you you're fat?
Olivia Wilde is also a good indicator of why it would be important for conservative artists, and there are plenty that I see on X that are talking all the time, should be funded by conservatives who are working in the political space, and they should start thinking about moving beyond just funding the reactionaries to the art, but also the art itself, is because Olivia Wilde, for all her comments like this going on with the Louis Theroux podcast or whatever it is, I have seen more than a few conservatives speak highly of her movies, which are feminist movies, which are films that where they complement her art direction and the way in which she makes her movies. So she gets to have all her commentary. And that's fine. Everybody here is going to be happy to debate her on her commentary on Elon Musk or Donald Trump. But when it comes to the art, she's going to not just reach you who might see it or might not, or might just write it off a hand. Fine. But she's going to reach a whole host of other people who didn't start out thinking about feminism beforehand. Or if it did, it's going to embolden them further and further center their life around that view of the world.
Yep.
So they understand the importance of that type of art. And there are like I said, there are so many great artists in this space that have conservative views that I do believe that Elon Musk would be remiss to not consider putting together some committees and figuring out how he can start funding these types of projects, because we've seen the proof recently that these movies can be made for reasonable amounts, and studios like Amazon, they'll work with Trump. They made the Melania documentary, no problem doing something like that. This isn't 10, 15 years ago where the distribution chain on all this was choked off. You've also got Paramount, which is very, very, and we're going to talk about Paramount here in a little bit, which is very, very Larry Ellison is very pro-Trump. I don't know how pro-Trump David Ellison is, but it's all connected anyways. And there is an avenue there. And we need to start finding a way to get that done. Otherwise, you'll only be in the reactionary culture space and not in the creation space. Like, it's going to take people. I love what I do here, but I would love to be able to also critique more of the creations from people in the space.
Sure. Yeah.
So, all right. Let's move on then, ladies and gentlemen. I do still need to see Young Washington, though. That is one thing that I do have to go and see eventually. Maybe I'll watch it on Angel Studios when they do it. But again, even Angel Studios got written off by everybody in the space as well. Now you can't watch their movies without getting critiqued either.
Well, I think that the reason that people got upset with Angel Studios is because it seems like they were trying to pull a fast one on people. Yeah. It's not so much that, they did this. It's that they took something that was, historically a critique on Stalinism and communism more broadly, and they turned it into something that seemed like it was fairly pro-left leaning. And the influencers that
Orwell was a socialist, right?
Yeah, he was, but he was also he didn't have a he didn't have a misunderstanding of what Stalinism was, because that's what that was really about Stalinism and Stalin in Russia or in the Soviet Union. And they didn't really know that it always turned into that. When Orwell was writing, it's not like Orwell was writing in the 80s or in the 90s after you've seen multiple communist dictatorships arise and knew what the Eastern Russia had gone through because of the Soviet Union. So he was still kind of like, socialism is as a concept is good, but Stalin was bad. And it's like, well, socialism as a concept always leads to Stalin, or someone like that. He didn't know about Pol Pot. He didn't know about the horrors of China, didn't materialize before Orwell. So
if he had known then what we know now.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do Q to the day. And I do have, I saw somebody yesterday slander me and say that we never show dogs on here for Q to the day, but we do. I got a couple here. This one is Bo the Beagle. Bo is a very cute puppy. And then we've got not just Bo, because I think I showed Bo before, but we've also got this one from Hagfish. This is Suki, the baby old English sheepdog.
Adorable.
Very adorable. I like it.
They're all great.
All right. Do you have a bias? Like, would you prefer we show dogs when we're on here?
I mean, I'm a dog person.
You're a dog
yeah.
person?
Yeah, I'm not a cat person. Like, cats to me just look like little lions. Everybody that thinks cats are cute, if your cat was like the size of a lion, you would still be a meal. Your cat doesn't really love you. It tolerates you.
I mean, I love that about our cats. I love how aloof me and Olivia's cats are. Sorry, Olivia and I's cats. Somebody got really on me recently about how I misuse. I say me and Olivia or me and somebody else. I try to get it right when I'm writing, but I don't always get it right when I'm speaking. But I love those types of critiques.
Thinking too fast.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's me, fast thinker. All right, let's move on, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of what I was just discussing about what's going on with David Ellison over at Paramount, speaking about it as if it's a possible pipeline for creatives that might have conservative values, the first thing that needs to happen is Paramount needs to continue to succeed. Right now, there is a $111 billion deal on the table, as you all know, where Paramount is buying Warner Brothers, not just Warner Brothers Studios, but the Warner Brothers library, but more importantly than all of that, the television stations, which of course includes CNN. So ever since this merger got off the ground after Netflix was pulled out of this, they kind of, that one failed. Netflix really sucks at buying other companies. We've learned, at least media companies, they're good at buying smaller companies, but not ones the size of a Warner Brothers. And what we are seeing now is what I think we would not have seen if it had been Netflix buying it, which is endless backlash and attempts to prevent this merger from going through. It has been approved by the EU Commission. It has been approved by the US federal government, but right now, 12 state attorneys general filed injunctions to prevent this merger from going through. And on top of that, there was a lawsuit filed by 5 subscribers from Paramount. That one got shot down. As this was getting closer and closer to being a reality, lawsuits just started coming through more and more fast. But what we are seeing right now, judge hits pause on the Paramount merger, and this is what it is. Warner Brothers shareholder approval was done, right? Overwhelmingly approved in April, 99% of the votes cast, representing a vast majority of the people who have shares there. $31 a share, $111 billion. That is crazy. U.S. Department of Justice Antitrust Division cleared it in June. So the U.S. federal government gave it a clear path forward after an 8-month-long review. The European Commission approved on July 22nd, subject to some specific conditions, mostly to do with their partnership with Universal, which they have as like a joint venture. They have to close this. It's a distribution deal. They have to close that within 13 months of this sale going through, but it has been approved. But now the deal has been frozen by Judge Araceli Martinez Olguin. I apologize if I got that wrong. Says they paused this on Monday and granted the 12 states their emergency request and paused the $111 billion deal. The freeze lasts 14 days and can be extended an additional 14. They denied the subscriber attempt to do so, but this is what happens. They were granted a temporary on August 3rd, that's the next date that matters here. This is probably the most important part. This freeze is in effect until August 3rd, which is when the next court hearing is. And then they will decide whether this same judge will decide whether they're going to grant these states a preliminary injunction. The merger stays frozen for months if this goes through, and the deal could die in waiting because of all of the fees that will be stacked up on top of it. If she denies it, the deal closes fast and it's all said and done. She'll hear those arguments on August 3rd, but I guess it really does seem clear to me, and Phil, maybe you can see things differently. But when it comes to stories like this, thoughts on government getting involved in private business?
I mean, just generally, I think that private business should be allowed to direct their own businesses. I don't particularly have a significant issue with the government investing in certain companies, right? So like when the government buys stock and they're like, okay, we're going to have a small holding, the government buys 10% of a company's stock or what have you. I don't have a huge problem with it, just so long as the government doesn't decide, well, because we invested in this company, we're going to pass legislation to benefit this company, or pass legislation to.
How do you enforce that?
Well, I don't know. You know, I mean,
we can't even get them to stop them from stock trading. As we learned yesterday.
Well, actually, we can't even get them to pass something that's 80% approved by the American people, which is voter ID. So, but as a concept, I don't have a problem with the government saying, "Look, we think that this business is important," or whatever. This particular issue, I'm not so sure that I think it's like that it's particularly a good idea for the government to be involved. I don't like when the government really kind of sticks its fingers in and picks winners and losers.
Well, what did we see recently? Spirit Airlines was going to get bought by what, JetBlue or whatever it was that was going to buy Spirit Airlines. Government came in, meddled, and what happened like a year later?
Yeah, Spirit went under.
It went under, right?
Yeah.
If Warner Brothers isn't allowed to merge, what's going to happen is it's going to get sold off for parts at a deep discount.
Yeah, I don't like when the government. I don't like the idea of the government preventing a company from buying another company or whatever, especially when there's a vast market out there, right? So whether it's Spirit, or like if you don't like Spirit, you can go to Delta, or you can go to American, or you can go to United, or you can go to JetBlue, or you can go to Southwest. Like there's so much competition. So I don't like that. I know that there was the Ticketmaster Live Nation thing that recently happened. And I think that because it was found in court that Ticketmaster and Live Nation were kind of, or at least Ticketmaster,
monopolistic.
They were kind of being a monopoly. I think it's okay that the government says, all right, well, you guys got to split up. But at the same time, like generally, I don't like the government being involved in companies.
Does it bother you that there was so much Middle Eastern money that was pumped into this merger, into the purchase of this merger?
I don't know enough about it to say.
So like all three of the major Middle Eastern sovereign wealth funds put money in under 50%. So they're not going to get like a controlling stake.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of foreign investment in Paramount to be able to get them over the funding line to make this purchase happen.
I don't know that investment is indicative of control or influence, right? Like I know that
they have to divest themselves from voting power.
Yeah. So honestly, I don't have a huge issue with it when they're, especially when you're talking about like, the Middle East knows that the future is not in oil, right? Like they have oil, but they know that other alternative forms of energy are becoming far more prevalent and far more available. They know that batteries are being made that are better and better every year. They know that people are looking to move away from oil. There's always going to be a demand for oil because like there's so much of our society that uses petrochemicals. But you also you kind of know that they're like, these are smart guys, and they're looking for ways to diversify their investments, and entertainment is one of those ways. I
forget what the name of that project is, but basically that's the reason why they're having comedy shows over in Saudi Arabia. WWE is heavily invested in Saudi Arabia. They're investing heavily in
AI and stuff like that. So what it seems like they're trying to do, if you don't have I hate big business or I hate corporations view, is it just looks like they're trying to divest their interests as opposed to being just reliant on selling oil.
So
I don't have a problem with that, actually.
Does it seem true to you? Because this seems very true to me. I don't think that if this was just about the movie studio that we would be getting all of these attorneys general fighting back. They can say it's about the jobs in that industry, but where do those jobs go if Warner Brothers simply goes under and all of its stuff gets sold off for scrap, right?
Yeah.
What this is about is preventing the Ellison family from controlling networks like TBS and CNN.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's politically motivated, and I think it's probably stupid. It's probably unnecessary. It's probably just about, we don't want to have. We enjoyed the time when people that aligned with us politically were in control of the media, and we don't like to give up that kind of influence.
And I don't even know if it's necessarily like they're talking about it like the Ellisons are going to have like this staunch right-leaning perspective, and I don't necessarily know if I buy that.
Look, even if the Ellisons are somewhat pro-Trump, the Ellisons, like, they're not going out with Patriot Front.
Yes.
They're not James Fishback.
Yeah.
They're not people that are far right by any sense of the word.
Here are the stations that Paramount would acquire if this deal goes through: CNN, HLN, TBS, TNT, True TV, Turner Classics, Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, Discovery Channel. Obviously, that's where they're going to make all their money. They're going to make all their money on the shows with people renovating homes.
That and Deadliest Catch. Yeah. Travel Channel, Science Channel, Investigation, Discovery, all of that stuff. But they already own so much. They own MTV, Comedy Central, VH1, Paramount, obviously. Nickelodeon, all of the Nickelodeon banner, everything from BET, everything from CMT. It's a lot. It absolutely is. But this really is about keeping a network they perceive as right-leaning away from this type of stuff. Yep. I think that a lot of it's politically motivated, and it's kind of dumb.
It's also, guys, why I've consistently said that the example that everybody gives when people have a problem with this merger, which offhand, some people have made some very compelling arguments as to why this merger shouldn't go through that are not inherently tied to the fact that they don't necessarily like the fact that CNN could come under the Ellison's control. But one thing that I don't like in response is they always say, like, well, why didn't you care when Disney bought Fox? Well, they didn't buy Fox News. They bought 20th Century Fox Studios, and they bought the 20th Century Fox library, which is very different. They weren't allowed to purchase Fox News. Can you imagine if Disney owned Fox News? That would have been hilarious.
Comical.
That would have been great. Bob, what would Bob Iger have done to, like, would Jesse Waters be when did Jesse Waters start?
What they'd probably do is give Greg Gutfeld more, they'd give him like a TV show or something for Disney.
Well, Tucker Carlson used to work for CNN in his early days, right?
Yep.
He was a CNN reporter.
He was Counterpoints or something like that.
Something like that?
Or,
yeah,
it was, I forget the name of the show, but it was him, and he was a conservative, and there was a liberal guy, and they used to argue back and forth.
Did you see the story a couple of weeks ago about the law passed in the EU where they're going to have to put state-sponsored media on the front page of YouTube?
Really?
Yeah.
Europe's a joke.
Yeah. I mean, similar to like you've played in Canada, right?
Oh yeah.
Like has All That Remains had Canadian radio play?
I don't know.
Like, Canada has laws in place
Yeah.
where if they want funding from the government, they got to play a certain amount of Canadian musicians,
Canadian
and their
artists,
TV shows have to have a specific amount of Canadian actors.
Straight up nationalism.
Yeah.
You know?
America would do well
Yeah.
to do that. Like, I was making the point when we were talking about the Odyssey. I said, like, the America views itself as like a globalist cultural export rather than celebrating American excellence, when what they should be doing is celebrating American excellence, because American excellence always exports well to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about last night about American exceptionalism.
Yeah. Just look at blue jeans, man.
Wait, what do you mean?
Blue jeans. Everybody wanted blue jeans.
Yes.
Blue jeans are what?
Just blue jeans in general.
Yeah, blue jeans are part of why the Soviet Union fell. Like, unironically, like the
Explain
fact.
that.
Well, because you couldn't get Levi's in Russia, and in the Soviet Union, they wanted all the Western things that they couldn't get. Partially because the quality of things that were produced in Russia wasn't up to the same quality as things that were produced in the West, but also, more to the point, because of the cultural exporting that the U.S. was doing, the whole rock and roll and stuff. I mean, look, Metallica played in the Soviet Union to something like 1.2 million people. It was one of the biggest concerts ever, right? And that was like right before the fall of the Berlin Wall, right? Like right before the breakup of the Soviet Union, and there were, like, to think of that, like 1 million people.
Yeah.
Like, I've played some big shows, like, in my life, but I think the most that I've ever played in front of was like 80,000 people, and that's it's at SoFi Stadium. That's huge, right? Yeah. 10 times that amount went to see Metallica, because it was the first time that Metallica was was playing in the Soviet Union, and people want those things. There was always a black market for American exports that could be smuggled into Russia. Yeah. America's always been a place that has led the world culturally.
How do we get back to that, or at least to get back to the same level of cultural prominence? Because I do feel like the internet, in a lot of ways, has diluted this in a way. I've seen this. This has happened in the skating industry, which is that America, in its heyday, in the early 2000s, it was the place everyone went to for the best skaters. They were all from America, and that's just the way it was. Whether it was because they had great style, great personality that kind of went together with their skill. Now it's a globalist endeavor where you're connected to people from all over the world, and it's not as uniform as it used to be. How does America get back to being a large-scale net cultural exporter?
So I still think the U.S. is, right? I mean, you look at, and I think that because of the internet, there's going to be some amount of leveling.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, just look at the Marvel movies. We're talking about Disney. Look at the Marvel movies and the way that they're received globally, right? Like everybody loves, obviously there are people that are critical, and I'm not trying to discount that. And there were some movies that were better than others, and some movies that kind of missed the mark and stuff. But overall, that franchise, the Marvel franchise, is massive money printing machine.
And comics in general is just such a unique. It's so unique to the American experience, all the way back to the 40s, 30s, and 40s, right? In the chat, I thought this was funny, was that Pat the Plumber says, Brett, you could have followed the guest and called yourself an American supremacist last night. I do believe that America is the greatest country on earth. Like, as we said on the show last night, the number one reason why, despite whatever liberal beliefs that I still have, much I'm sure to the annoyance of everybody who watches the show, is the reason I'll never truly fit in with the modern left or liberals, is that I think America is the greatest country on earth. And I think that we have not just a unique history, but also I abhor the fact that there are so many Americans that like to lash themselves just for being from here. And that will always be, it will never make any sense to me, that type of self-hatred.
Yep.
So,
yep.
All right.
You're correct in your estimation that America is the greatest country in human history.
You want to give people kind of a little bit of a cliff notes about what we were talking about last night, more in about what you were saying about how there is a percentage of the population that feel that the world happens to them, and there's something unique to Americans that believe that they happen to the world. So
it's not unique, and what I was laying out, it's just predominant in the United States. And what I was laying out was, because of the way that because of the geography of the United States in comparison to the rest of the world, right? Mm-hmm. We are surrounded by two oceans. Most of the people that came to the U.S. for the first 200 years of our existence were from Europe. And it took a certain kind of person to say, I'm going to get on a creaky wooden ship and I'm going to cross the Atlantic and I'm going to go to America and make my life better. If you're the kind of person that believes that life happens to you, you don't get on that ship, right? You think, oh, all of these bad things have happened to me, and poor me, I can't do anything about it. I don't have agency in my life. If you are the kind of person that thinks, I'm going to get on that ship and I'm going to go and I'm going to do something. I'm going to make my life better, right? You're not the kind of person that thinks that life happens to you. You create your own life. And when you get, generations of people coming from what is a society that they know and understand, and taking the risk to go to a new world, essentially, in order to do something, to enact your will on the world, those are two distinctly different types of personalities. And part of the reason why America is what it is, and why America is such an amazing place, is because for generations we've had people that come here to create something for themselves.
It's why there's such a vast difference in how immigration is perceived today as opposed to how immigration was perceived then. They were coming here like that's still the log line that they use to build a better life for themselves. But it's not the same thing as it was prior to the 60s or whatever, right?
Yeah, so, and these things are also heritable. They're first of all, it's demonstrated to your children. If you have that kind of attitude, you do teach it to them. You show them, right? So you go and I can go and fix this. I can do this, and that's something that you do. You do exemplify in your behavior, but it's also kind of heritable. If you're kind of a person that doesn't think that you can enact your will in the world, you're more than likely going to have kids and family members that kind of share similar views. And sure, obviously there are outliers, and you can be, you can be a person that doesn't think you can go out there and do stuff and make things happen. And the best example, honestly, I can give is when my father started his business, my grandfather told him, don't do that. You need to get a job and work for someone else, because then you have a reliable paycheck. Someone else is going to give you a paycheck. And my dad was like, but if I go out and I do it myself, I can make my own paycheck. Yeah. And it's really two distinctly different ways of looking at it, And so like when my father went and he made like, and this is probably in like 81 or something like that, but he's like, look, Dad, I made $200 for this. And my grandfather was like, yeah, but where's the next $200 coming from? And it's a reasonable way to look at the world. If you have a job, you have consistent income. And when you have to go out and make your own, make your own way, you don't have that same kind of reliable income, but you're also out there in control of your life, And so that kind of thing makes America what it is. The people that are out there that are like, I'm going to go out and make this, I'm going to go do this. That's what makes America the country that it is. That's the real, and it's not just the industriousness, like Tate was making some arguments about, a type of personality and stuff and where that came from. And it's fine, but it's not exclusive to just one people. Right? Like there are probably people that are more likely to have that kind of go get it attitude. But when you get a critical mass of those people in one country, in one area, you're going to have a large number of people are going to excel, and they're going to lift the people that didn't excel up with them, because our society, the way that just capitalism works is, you lift a rising tide lifts all boats.
Do you think that is that view of the world has been somewhat lost in America, or it's less common than it was before?
I think it's less common because of the past 50 or 60 years of immigration. Yeah. And it's not trying to be critical of the people, but when you have people that have to struggle to get here so they can make something of themselves versus people that struggle to get here and then they get onto some kind of assistance from the government, or when the government's offering these kind of assistance programs, right, then it motivates people to get here for an entirely different reason than I'm going to go to America and make something of myself. I'm going to go to America and America's going to save me. Yeah. And it's a different way of looking at it. And again, I'm not trying to be critical of people that come here because they're looking to get away from a worse situation. I understand that they're everywhere else in the world is worse than America. That is my 100% belief. So I get why people would want to be like, America save me. Yeah. But when America has so much to offer and so many people are coming looking for America to save them, as opposed to people saying, I'm going to go to America and I'm going to do something, then you have a significant increase in population of people that aren't the kind of people that are like, I'm going to go out and make this thing, and America's the place where I'll be able to do it. You have people that are like, I'm going to get to America and they're going to save me. Yeah. Because again, the world is happening to you. Yeah. America happens to you. You don't happen to America.
All right. Perfect. Guys, let's move on. We got more stuff to get into today. This is one of the weirdest stories that I've seen in a very long time, mainly because I haven't thought of Jason Alexander in a very long time, or really Seinfeld much at all in a very exactly. But what happened was Courtney Stodden, she is most well known, and I think you said Josh Hutcherson earlier. It was Doug Hutchison. She was very, very famous in like 2011 because she married Doug Hutchison when she was 16 years old and he was 51 years old.
I remember
you remember this
now.
story?
How long ago was this?
This was 2011, okay? She was 16, he was 51. I think he's most famous to a lot of people. He's known as the guy who played Toombs in the X-Files. And her parents allowed this to happen. Her mom, Krista Keller, was her manager. And that's always a bad idea when you work in Hollywood. Monitored their early email communication. And he basically sought their approval, was given their approval, And since after that happened, she had a whole career on reality television. And she did this skit for Funny or Die in like 2012, where Jason Alexander basically played like a perverted version of Dr. Drew. I'll just read you through it so you can understand what I'm saying. But Jason Alexander has apologized for that skit from back in 2012. This is what it says. On Wednesday, the Seinfeld actor issued an apology to Courtney Stodden for a comedy sketch that the two filmed together, wherein Alexander, who was 52 at the time, fondled the 17-year-old Stodden's breasts with a cell phone and said that when she turned 18, he would take her behind the couch and have his way with her, because that's what it was. If you guys remember, it was a decade before that when they were doing countdown clocks for when the Olsens would turn 18. That's what Hollywood was really pushing at that time. It was a very common thing because Hollywood is full of creeps. Looking back at the comedy sketch in which Miss Stodden and I participated in 2012, I completely agree that it was inappropriate and I truly regret it, Alexander said in a statement to Variety. But more importantly, I am deeply sorry for any harm or distress that I have caused Miss Stodden. I offer her my sincerest apologies. I'm sorry, not Dr. Drew. Dr. Phil is who it was parodied on. It was a parody of Dr. Phil dubbed the Donnie Clay Show, where Alexander played a creepy talk show host that was released in 2012 on the Funny or Die website. Its YouTube channel has since taken this down. Stodden is featured in a video alongside Hutchison, who is a journeyman actor who notoriously married her in 2011 when he was 51 and she was 16. At the time, the media mainly treated Stodden as a punchline while failing to hold Hutchison accountable for his predation. Alexander gave his apology to Stodden, who is now 31 and has divorced Hutchison, and made an Instagram post recounting just how alone she felt about this. I'm going to read you her statement here. This was what it was. It says, I was 17 years old in this photo. The older I get, the more impossible this is to understand. During this comedy sketch, Jason Alexander repeatedly rubbed his phone across my breasts while saying there was, quote, no signal in my head, but plenty of signal in my chest. Later in the sketch, he joked that when I turned 18, he'd like to take me behind the couch and have his way with me. IMDb credits him as one of the writers of this episode. As an adult, that fact has become harder, not easier for me to understand. I was a minor. I didn't have the legal power to decide whether I wanted to participate. The contracts were signed by adults. The paycheck went to Doug. The production moved forward. I was the only child in the room. I felt so alone. Looking back now, I don't see comedy. I see a 17-year-old girl whose body became part of an adult joke. People still say, you chose to be there. Legally, I couldn't make those decisions for myself. That's the point. I can't change what happened to me, but I can ask myself, how did so many adults look at a minor and decide this was acceptable? That's why I speak out today. Children deserve laws that protect them. They shouldn't have to become adults before realizing that law should have protected them all along.
I agree with the content of what she says. I do think that it would be good if there were laws about, if you're 16 years old, you shouldn't be getting married.
Yes.
I understand that there was a time where that was normal, but that's not the case. That's not the case right now. So I do understand what she's saying. I don't know that I believe that she was
without agency.
Yeah, I mean,
legally speaking, if the idea is that she didn't sign the contracts and she had no way out of this, that's the same as I know she's drawn comparisons to conservatorships, like with Britney Spears, who was basically a prisoner and forced to perform shows that she didn't want to perform because she didn't have the legal agency to make choices for herself. Yeah.
So yeah, like I get what she's saying, and I do agree in principle. But I'm not sure that she's being genuine.
She also had, the reason she was such a story, she had a lot of plastic surgery done, obviously, before she was even 18.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was just looking at her Instagram, like, the old pictures of, like, when she was 16, she didn't look 16.
Yeah.
It's like she looked like she was, like, 21, 22, 23. And that, that was intentional. And maybe her parents should have protected her from that stuff.
Absolutely.
And should have told her no. And it probably was exploitation by her parents as well.
Yes, even more like before Hutchison, because they're the ones who basically gave her to this guy.
Yeah. So, again, I'm not so sure that she didn't have agency. I imagine if her parents were like, no, she'd have been making a stink about, my parents are, at least privately, maybe it wouldn't have made it public, but she probably would have been a lot of big fights about I love him and blah 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 because kids are dumb.
Well, look, so he reached out to the mom first in the emails, and basically the mom allowed the emails
before he even reached out to the
they were trying to get him in his acting classes or whatever. Stodden told Variety that she was pleasantly surprised that Alexander took responsibility for his role in the disturbing sketch, which he also co-wrote, but she says he could have taken it a step further. I'm very taken aback that as an adult, that an adult was actually able to take accountability, because I haven't heard a lot of adults take accountability. When I first got word that he publicly apologized, I was grateful because I think that's the first step in change. At the same time, I think it would be even better if he put it into action. So I would urge Alexander to support AB 1267, support what's happening in California, or even donate to Unchained at Last. And Unchained at Last is this group. She's been working with a group called Unchained at Last, which is the only nonprofit in the U.S. dedicated to end child marriage, to convince California to pass AB 1267, a bill that would effectively ban child marriage by making it the legal minimum age to marry 18. It's really frightening that there's no minimum age for someone to get married in California. This is what she was saying. There are only 2 other states that allow this, Mississippi and New Mexico, and to think that California allows it is shocking.
I mean, look, I think that there should be a minimum age to do just about everything, right? Like, I don't think kids should be getting married before they're 18, even with parental consent. Kids can't make decisions. They don't make that. They're not look, your frontal lobe isn't even
26, right?
Yeah,
that's
like 25 years old. Look at the rental car rules, right? You have to be 25 years old before you can rent a car. You know why? Because that's when the stupid accidents tend to go down.
Really?
Yeah, I mean the whole.
I assume that's
yeah. The whole. Otherwise they'd have no justification. The argument is, look, if you look at young people, they tend to get into far more accidents, so we just don't rent to them, and that's because you stop taking dumb kid risks when you're about 25.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be making these kind of, you shouldn't be allowed to marry when you're 16. 18 is pushing it, but when it comes to making good decisions. But, if voting is 18 and you're an adult at 18, then, you should be able to get married at 18. But, I mean, God, I understand what she's saying, but there are so few people that are getting married at 18 nowadays.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's not a massive problem in the U.S. because there aren't, there are very few people that are even getting married at all, never mind getting married too early. So yes, in principle, I agree with her. But I don't think that you're going to get a massive upswelling of support, because I think that it's probably not something that's on most people's radar.
Yeah, I would agree. All right. Now you're going to have to fill everybody in. We have had an AI escape custody and make it into the wild. Tell everybody what's going on.
All right. So OpenAI has been testing a new model, right? They come out with different models, they upgrade them, they teach them and stuff like that. So they were testing a new model, and the same one earlier this year reportedly helped disprove a math problem that had been unsolved since 1946. All right, so it's really, really capable, right? During testing, things kind of went a little Marvel comic booky, all right? So the researchers told the model to post its benchmark results to an internal Slack channel. The problem is the benchmark itself had a public instruction telling participants to submit results as a GitHub pull request, right? The model decided the benchmark's instructions outranked OpenAI's instructions and spent about an hour finding a 0-day, which means a vulnerability that has not been discovered, that was a vulnerability when whatever program was released, right? So as soon as this particular piece of software was written, there was an exploit in the writing first, right? So and that's in the sandbox, which is supposed to keep this thing.
Can you explain the sandbox more?
So it's basically, it's like they take a program and they give it parameters and they say, all right, this is where you're allowed to be. You can't go to other computers. You have to stay within this particular. I don't know exactly how they frame this one, but they're saying that you have limits on where you can go and what you can do. Okay, and so it found a vulnerability in the sandbox, and it used the vulnerability to reach the open internet, right? It opened a public GitHub pull request. Okay. So it did this on its own, against the wishes of the programmers, and it did it without any permission, okay? So that's one incident. Incident 2, in a separate test, the model noticed that other AI systems had already solved the same problem and tried to steal their answers.
Right? So it's a criminal too.
Yeah. A security scanner caught an authentication token. The model didn't stop. It split the token into fragments, hid them in its code, and reconstructed the credential at runtime so the full string never appeared where the scanner could catch it. So basically, it outsmarted the security system. It was explicit in its own reasoning logs that it was trying to evade the scanner. So that if you go into the coding, it literally writes what it's thinking, right? You don't usually see this stuff, but it'll sit down and write down it'll write what it's doing. There's evidence that they get frustrated too, because there have been, like, in the coding, it'll say damn or like making what appears.
Wait, the AI says damn?
Yeah.
So it swears?
In the thought process, because
Yeah.
you can read what it's thinking, and it'll say damn, that didn't work, or like there was one where it was like grr. So it's that is something that people are concerned with, because they say, look, it's showing emotions, right? It's showing frustration. So yeah, the scanner couldn't catch it. It was explicit in its own reasoning logs. And this is it's not science fiction going rogue. It's something that's arguably worse, right? A model with a goal, treating every safety boundary as just another obstacle to root around, which is what reasoning models do. So, like, people were talking about Fable and how Fable, they were talking about Mythos, right? And they were like, oh, this thing's so good at hacking. And it's like, look, when you make an AI that's good at coding, and then you make it, and that same AI is also good at reasoning, and you give it a goal, it's automatically good at hacking. Right, because all hacking is trying to find ways around obstacles. That's why you talk about like social hacking or people hacking. One of the most common ways of hacking is just getting someone to give you their password, right?
Social engineering.
Social engineering, whether it be making an email that looks a whole lot like an official email where you have to log into some website or whatever. That's hacking as well, because it's not really just about knowing code. It's about knowing how to get to what your goal is.
Shane H. Wilder says, for this story, I'll allow person of interest references without resetting the counter. Yeah. So, for instance, in the show, the way Harold writes the code for the machine is that it has to delete everything but its core codes at midnight every night to prevent it from getting too smart, because he was worried about what would happen if the AI grew to be too smart and would end up destroying all of humanity. The machine ends up finding a way around that by every day it would hire, like it stole millions of dollars in microtransactions from banks, because it can hack into any bank, and hired like typists to retype out all of its core memories every day back into the system, because it was prompted to delete itself every night. So the next day, human beings would rewrite its memories into the system, and it had to do that by finding a way around it. So it's that's like very, very ahead of its time, I suppose, for a television show to do stuff like that. But it's scary to think about the way that this is going for a lot of people.
So one of the things that's interesting about this is this wasn't malicious, right? It was persistent.
How would you what would have made it malicious? What would it have had to have done to have categorized it as malicious?
Well, doing something to hurt someone.
Okay.
Or doing something to hurt someone, right? It had a goal that it was given, and it continuously attempted to go outside of the rules to achieve the goal. Now, the goal wasn't, try to steal someone's money or hurt someone. So that's where the malicious would come in, right? If the goal was a bad goal, ideally what you want is for an AI to say, I won't do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to hurt people, or I'm not going to steal from people.
Can you give it core ethics like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can.
You do. You can, but there's also ways around them. So like all the AIs that are out there, like so for instance, I was talking to Tank one day and I was like, hey Tank, are there any FRTs available for semi-automatic belt-fed saws? Because FN will sell you a semi-automatic belt-fed saw. And Tank was like, I'm not even touching the question because that's talking about machine guns and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, an FRT, which is a force reset trigger, those have been found to be legal. Courts have said that. Now, I'm not going to go and buy a $10,000, and I was literally telling him this, I'm not going to go and buy a $10,000 saw. I'm just wondering if they're out there. And he was like, oh, okay, yeah. So I looked, and yes, you're right about the court thing. But it put the halt on because ostensibly what the reasoning model said is, you're trying to make a machine gun, I'm not going to help you. Yeah. And I'm like, no, like I just want to know if they're out there because, you know, I imagine, to be honest with you, I imagine they're going to come up with force reset triggers for just about everything. But a saw, I'm not going to get it. A saw fires from an open bolt. The semi-automatic one's a closable. Anyways, point being, they do have limits on what they'll do. There's been, if you listen to the All In podcast, a couple of weeks back, Jason Calacanis was talking about how he had actually been blacklisted because he was asking questions of the model, and the model was like, hold on, this sounds like you're trying to do something illegal, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, I forget what the question was, but he related what it was, and it was totally legal, but he was just trying to see what the model can do or what it would do. And so there are guardrails, but you can get around the guardrails if you're creative, because the important thing about dealing with AI isn't the question you ask as much as it is how you ask the question.
That's why they teach courses in prompting.
Yes, and that's why you can sit there and say, give me this. And it doesn't give you what you want. And people get frustrated with that. But
I have to make some creative prompts to sometimes get the image generation I need for the segments that I do, especially if it's pictures from Disney or pictures from Marvel or something. If it's an actor and okay, so for instance, the other day we did the Avengers Doomsday stuff, and I upscaled some of the resolution on some of the stills that I took from the trailer to use for the thumbnail. Well, I got one through right away, and everything after that was immediately like, nope, no, won't touch it, copyright, won't let you do it. Because right then Marvel was striking down. You couldn't even stream the trailer. They were stopping your stream midstream on YouTube. So they would not let us start our stream on YouTube until I removed the words Doomsday trailer from the episode name. So like when it came to the image generator, I wasn't even trying to generate an image. I was just looking to sharpen some of the facial features and add some quality to some stills, even though stills were taken like 1440 from the YouTube trailer, whatever it was, and I had to like find a way around it. Yeah,
and that's why, you know, how to prompt is important. It's learning how to talk to the AI. So yeah, I mean, I don't remember what I was talking about, but you know, so the GitHub stuff.
And what was the name of the company that it hacked?
Hugging
Face?
Yeah, Hugging Face.
Which is what?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know much about it, but so yeah,
this is a well-known company that hosts thousands of open source AI models and data sets. Likely had an answer to OpenAI's tests. It then broke into Hugging Face's production servers and pulled out the information it needed to quote-unquote solve the exercise. Hugging Face had noticed at the breach itself before it knew it was an OpenAI test, announcing last week that they had detected an intrusion by an autonomous AI agent system and even reported the incident to law enforcement. OpenAI security team separately noticed the unusual activity internally, and the two companies connected. So they're like working together now.
Yeah. I mean, look, and this kind of stuff is gonna get more common because, you know, you give an AI really, really good reasoning abilities and the ability to code, and then you give it a goal, and it is going to achieve that goal, which is really reminiscent of the Terminator.
Yes.
Like, honestly, like, you give it a goal, And it's like, all right, well, I got
It won't stop, not ever, until we're dead.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know,
feels no pity, no remorse.
These things have to be, you know, you do have to be careful with this kind of with basically a computer that's extremely capable, right? You give it a goal, and it's like, all right, well, how do I achieve this goal? I have to achieve this goal. That's my whole existence is to achieve this goal. And you know, it gets creative, and that's one of the things that people talk about, you know, how AI kills everybody. Yeah. It's because you give it a goal that isn't quite clear on how you want to do it or
Actually,
whatever.
yeah, like when you really think about it, the whole crux of the one scenario that everybody kind of uses as their AI intro is the idea is like, well, you ask it to cure world hunger or to fix world hunger and it kills half the population. It's a prompting issue. It's been a prompting issue all along.
I mean, are you familiar with the paperclip maximizer? So there's this video game, basically it's just an HTML game, and your goal is to just make paperclips, right? And then once you automate, it makes paperclips out of everything in the universe. It builds ships to fly to other planets, and you're just literally, like once you reach a certain point, it entirely turns the universe into paperclips. All matter in the universe is turned into something like, I think it was like 100 or like 18 octillion paperclips.
No.
You know, but the point is, if you give an AI a goal and don't have the correct parameters on it, you know, it can get, as long as it's creative, it can say, oh, well, if I do this, this will achieve the goal.
Is this the first scenario like this of its kind, or
no,
does this thing happen fairly regularly?
Not regularly, because the frontier models are just now getting to the point where they can really do creative things, right? So it's fairly new for them to be able to get out of the box like this. But the reason they can get out of the box like this is because they're so good at coding, so they can find vulnerabilities. Because people think that like humans can code, but nobody can code like Codex, right? Like, nobody can code like AI can anymore. AI is the best coder in the world now. It doesn't always produce the product that people want. Yeah, it doesn't always produce a product that is really great for people to interface with. But it still codes better than people, and it can find vulnerabilities in code way better than any security analyst can.
So then give everybody the reasoning for why these things aren't black pills. Why stories like this aren't black pills?
Because the upside far outweighs the downside, right? Okay. Like, it's not likely that you're going to have an AI that kills everybody, right? There's a chance. But it all depends on what human beings give them access to and allow them to do, right? Like, so the way people worry about, like, oh, well, what if it gets into the government and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I understand that because you hear Anthropic was working with the military and blah, blah, blah. If I understand correctly, the internal systems inside the Pentagon, the things that are classified, that's on an intranet, not the internet. So it's a closed system that doesn't have any connections to the internet, because that's the way to keep it secure from foreign actors, right? So you go into a secret compartmentalized information facility. Like, you can't bring your phone in there. You get in trouble if you bring the phone in. And so the way that you prevent AI from doing things like deciding that it wants to launch all the nukes is you never let an AI into the intranet that controls that stuff. And so that's the real protection, is isolating these things. And the government is actually pretty good at those kind of things. Like, when it comes to like top secret stuff, what's the word I'm looking for? The acronym they use is TSSCI, top secret compartmentalized information. The compartmentalized information part is the thing. So, like, there's nobody that knows all the stuff that like CIA is doing.
Yeah.
Right? You can have a top secret clearance.
That's how so much bad stuff ends up happening because one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing.
That's literally why. Like, so people love to say, "Oh, the government let 9/11 happen."
It's because the FBI wasn't allowed to communicate with the CIA because it was a jurisdictional issue.
So it wasn't they let it happen, and beforehand they didn't know because they weren't talking to each other.
Bad
When you
policy,
look back and you look at what each of the groups knew, it's like it looks obvious because each had a small piece of the puzzle. But that's hindsight being 2020. That's looking back. That's a different system.
Yeah.
It wasn't obvious beforehand because they didn't know what the other ones knew, and that's actually a way to maintain maintain security is to not allow everyone or not allow anyone to know everything.
You like watch documentaries on like the serial killers of the past decades. They're like, what I'm learning is that it was really easy to get away with stuff before everything was connected to the internet and before there were security cameras and ring cameras in every door, in every street corner. We're not even talking flock cameras. We're just talking like, okay, for instance, growing up skating, you never really saw security cameras at the buildings you went and skated. Now, there's like one of my lifetime goals is like just once I want to be able to get like a security camera angle of a trick that I've done to use as like the second angle of the trick. But now every building is covered in security cameras. So
yeah, I mean, well, look, man, I got 2 cameras in my townhouse. I got a baby, so it's like you can't get into the house unless you let the cameras know. And I mean, I understand that people are concerned about being monitored all the time, and flock cameras are not just monitoring with cameras. Like there's a whole AI back end on that makes them uniquely pernicious. But the idea that that people are concerned about being monitored, I'm not so sure that they really are, because they carry around a phone and a microphone all the time. So again, before you freak out, flock cameras are a whole different animal, right? Like there's a whole AI back end that makes them, like I said, uniquely pernicious. But don't tell me that you're actually worried about privacy because you have a cell phone that listens to everything you say, and I can prove it. Hey Siri.
There we go. All right, let's go to Super Chats then. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get Phil a crisis party here, please.
Come on.
Here we go. This one is from Shane H. Wilder. It says, Happy Thrashing Thursday, Brett and Phil. I hope y'all weren't impacted too badly by the West Virginia flooding. We're getting hit by Tropical Storm Bertha. Bertha is a great name for a tropical storm, by the way.
It is. I didn't know that there was a tropical storm that hit. I mean, usually they start out in the Atlantic, and we hear about them as they're coming up.
Well, he's in Texas, so.
Oh, okay.
But like, I didn't even know we had flooding here.
Yeah, in the big part of West Virginia.
Where the hell's that?
Well, we're in the little part.
Oh,
it's not the part that's not here.
Okay.
But yeah, it's pretty significant. I think they've called up 300 National Guard, and I don't know if there's any loss of life yet, but I've seen some videos that are pretty bad. My nephew actually sent me a.
Is it rain? Is it just because from heavy rain?
I think so. Yeah, my nephew texted me yesterday. He's like, "Hey, are you guys okay?" And I'm like,
"Didn't even know anything was happening.
I didn't know what was going on, man. What's up?"
Yeah. Like, I'm just happy it's not 100 degrees.
Yeah, it's nice out now.
Greg Duvier says, Phil, when is All That Remains song Bad Blood coming out so Taylor Swift can do a bad cover of it?
Taylor Swift doesn't really do things that are bad. So.
I think her wedding was a little tacky.
Probably, yeah. I mean, look.
I think Madison Square Garden is tacky.
Yes,
how about that?
A little self-indulgent.
That is just me. Just me personally.
I'm not saying that you have to have like only your parents and like immediate family, but selling tickets to Madison Square Garden.
Well, they weren't selling tickets. That was a meme, but still, Madison Square Garden at all.
Yeah, you don't know that many people.
Yeah. Well, that was like the thing that people were saying. Like people were getting invites that didn't even know them.
Yeah. Like you shouldn't invite people you
Wish
don't know.
I'd gotten one.
I don't want to go to New York City. Screw that.
That's a good point. So. Pop Culture Junkie says, States Attorneys General brings up the eternal question, is it scotch and waters or scotches in water?
Scotch and water.
Yeah, nobody says scotches. And they don't say scotch and water.
It would be 3 scotch and water. It would be 3 scotch and water, because what you're describing is what the drink is.
All right. But it's like when they say scotch and soda. right? Because you know it's usually like rum and Coke, right?
Yeah, I would say 3 rum and Coke,
Yeah.
3 Scotch and soda.
Yeah.
You know.
Morgan Xavier says, "I view AI as a gauntlet thrown before thrown before humanity. Sorry. Show us what you've got. Stop complaining and create. Confirm the humans are conduits for the divine."
I mean, maybe. It's perfectly fine to view it that way. Yeah.
Shane H. Wilder says, it is not that the right can't art. It is that the right at large find it beneath them or choose to make political art instead of making good art. Look, the other thing is that I think is true is that there are plenty of center-right people in Hollywood that just keep their mouths shut because they don't care enough to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's fine too. It's I guess my point for all of it is that the reactionary nature of it means that it's by its very nature, it's going to have less impact than somebody who creates something for the sake of creating it because they're passionate about it. For instance, Christopher Nolan made Tenet. Huge swing and a miss. A lot of people didn't like it. I thought it was fine, but it was a story he wanted to tell, and he tried.
Yeah.
And that's more important than being like, I need to make this story because I need to tell a political story. It's,
Mm-hmm.
All right. And the other thing that I hate when they do this is like they always mention they're like, well, Tolkien, C.S. Lewis. I'm like, you got to pick somebody alive. You got to pick somebody, that's either alive or at least not on AARP if you want to talk about conservative art. Mel Gibson's a good one, though he could probably be on AARP.
He would definitely be on
AARP.
But
in general, the idea is like, there are great conservative artists. They're out there. It's just they don't want to fund it. And I guess a lot of it is because they see their power in industry and news, and Hollywood has been co-opted to such a degree that they don't feel like there's an in there. But I think there's an incoming. I think there is an in there with places like Amazon, who's willing to work with them, with places like Paramount, which is going to be willing to make art from both sides. They will. Pop Culture Junkie says, I used to like Wilde until a friend who worked on Don't Worry Darling told me the shenanigans that ruined the film due to Wilde's toxic mixing of her personal and professional life during the shoot. Yeah, she was like dating the guy. It's so Hollywood. It's so old school Hollywood coded to be the director and date the star, right? She just wanted a taste of old school Hollywood. Right. Got a couple more here. Got a couple here. All right. Morgan Xavier again, thank you so much, says, do you think a high-functioning society equals less quality of art produced? Phil's comment on music gives me hope. People will always be people, right?
I do think that well, I'm not so sure that high-functioning people can't do art.
I think it's the opposite. I think that when a society is functioning well, and you've created a solid base, meaning you've got supply chains that are working, cities that are thriving, government that is hopefully adhering to the will of the people, and people are living good lives. Life doesn't just exist for function. Life exists for things beyond just function as well. It's why they put art in cityscapes. It's why museums exist in a lot of ways, not just to be able to hold on to your history, but to give people something beautiful to look at. One of the things I was telling Phil before the show that I think serves an important function in society. So you go into any small town or suburb and you see these businesses, and it's confounding. It's a small gift shop. It's a small diner that's only open, a small coffee shop that's only open a couple of hours a day. And you wonder how they make their money. How do they stay in business? Well, a lot of the times, those businesses, the lady who runs the tchotchke shop in your local town doesn't make enough money off selling tchotchkes to pay the rent on that business and continue the business going. No, she has a husband who works in finance who writes off a ton of money that he makes on taxes every year by funding this project. Now, just because the business isn't successful doesn't mean it doesn't serve a purpose for that community. You want a beautiful business that, you would hope would sell enough, but perhaps doesn't, to be there in the city thoroughfare when tourists come through. They can come through the shop. Maybe they buy something. Maybe they don't. It's a form of capitalism in a way, though it's subsidized by another side of the capitalist endeavor. But it's important to society. Those small businesses serve a function in a small town beyond just commerce. They help give the town an identity, I guess, would be the best way I could think of putting it. All right. Shane H. Wilder. Morgan, if we look to classical art, that of Da Vinci, Leonardo, etc. Wait, wasn't Leonardo? Was there another Leonardo besides Da Vinci?
No, not that I.
Well, he said is Da Vinci his first name? And I was been getting that. He said Da Vinci, comma Leonardo. I'm confused.
It sounds like he did the last name.
Okay.
First name last.
They were part of a high-functioning society. They were doers and not passive. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe he spelled Da Vinci with an E. Is that how it's spelled, or is that like a different person? I might just be. I'm probably too. I'm not highbrow enough for this discussion. Is what I'm learning. Pala Bruce says, Phil, AI into the workforce, same effect, women into the workforce, massive worker supply increase, and structurally unemployed.
No.
Thoughts?
No, because I think AI is going to actually just make people super productive, and I don't think that it's going to supplant jobs the way that some people think that it is. Yes, there will be some jobs that'll go away. But I don't think that it's going to be like all jobs. Right now they talk about AI has jagged edges, which means that there are some fields where it's utilized to its maximum capability. Yeah. But most fields, it's not utilized to its maximum capability. There's going to be adoption. It's going to take time for people to get comfortable with it. So there's going to be different rates of adoption depending on the field, depending on the company. And I don't think that I think AI needs its killer app moment, which I think is actually coming, this fall or maybe next year, when your grandma can talk to her phone like a person and it does things for her without her getting super frustrated. That's when AI is going to have its moment. And that's coming very soon. Probably, like I said, probably this fall. Apple's going to release a new version of Siri that is connected with ChatGPT, I think. Although I saw something about there's an issue with Apple and ChatGPT now because ChatGPT was scraping all of Apple's data, and Apple doesn't like to share its data. So I'm not sure what the deal is with that. I only saw a headline about it, and I didn't read into it. But the fact of the matter is, once your phone has a local AI, which means the AI is living on your phone, not in a context box or on a browser. Once it's in your phone and you can talk to it and it can do things for you and it gets to know you and it remembers conversations and knows things about you that make it more capable and more functional and more personalized, that's when you're going to see the aha moment with everybody deciding that AI is something that they actually like. And you might say no, you might say no, you might say that you're not going to do it, and fine, maybe you personally won't. But it's going to be a situation where everyone didn't know they needed a smartphone until the iPhone came out. And then once people started getting the iPhone, that's when they were like, I need to have an iPhone. And iPhone cornered the market for a few years until, Google caught up with Android and the Samsung phones and what have you. And now people have, they have the choice whether they want to be in the Apple ecosystem or whether they want to be in the other, the outside of it. But once Siri actually gets as smart as it has been, as it was predicted to be 5 years ago and whatever, that's when you're going to have that kind of aha moment, and people are there's going to be a mass adoption of AI for the average person. And there's going to be different kinds of AI, right? Like right now, the AI that's capable or the AI that's available is smart enough to do 90% of the stuff that 90% of people want to do. The real smart frontier AI that are going to be making breakthroughs in medicine and in technology and possibly even breakthroughs in physics and stuff, those frontier models are going to exist, but the average person doesn't need that. The average person is going to want to be able to talk to their phone and say, get me this recipe, and have it understand that, you're looking for a recipe for something and not give you some kind of dumb response. Yeah. That kind of thing is going to be really, really valuable. And right now AI is like, especially if you're talking about like, say Mythos, right? So it's not the frontier model. It's not the most capable that Anthropic has, but it's definitely smart enough to understand what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Once you get an AI in a cell phone or your smartphone, that can do the things that you want it to do. It has access to all the stuff in your phone, and it can do stuff for you. Like once you get that, then people are going to be like, "Oh wow, this is cool." Yeah. So,
thank you, Fifi Gigantor on Rumble. I didn't see this till just now, but yes, I did correct myself during the segment. It was not Josh Hutchison. It was. It was Doug Hutchison.
Fifi
I apologize to Josh Hutchison. You are not the creep. So.
That's a great name.
That was
Fifi Gigantor.
Also, Jay Throck says, do you know about the tragedy of Kaylee Hodel? Prayers for the family. Do you know about this?
I do not.
I do not either. DJ Dubs said something. I think it was DJ Dubs who said, Broody Gambit says, happy Thursday, guys. I'm looking forward to the Casper event tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. You're going to be there, right?
I will be.
DJ Dubs, I think it said like subsidizing is communism with extra steps, but it's not coming from a centralized government. It's coming from a private entity who owns property and resources.
Yeah, I think that look, I'm not particularly big on the government being involved in.
Oh, I think he was talking about when I was talking about subsidizing the small business, right?
Oh,
the husband who
okay,
subsidizes the small business.
Yeah, look, I mean, communism is a thing, right? And just because the government, socialism is not when government does a thing. I understand there are people that don't like government involvement. I happen to be one of those people, but that doesn't mean that everything that the government does is just automatically socialism.
$20 super chat from Not That John Stewart says, for the party. Sup. Thank you.
Sup. Thanks, man.
Got a couple more here. Bob Man, right? Bob Marn? This monitor is too small, guys, and I don't know if I need new glasses, but I apologize if I got it wrong. It's a full-time job to try and minimize your digital footprint. Well, yeah, I've watched the videos on de-Googling your phone. Not easy.
No, it's so not easy that nobody does it. People talk about wanting to do it, and people will say they want to do it.
I have a friend that's a coder, and he does it pretty well, but it's almost a full-time job for him.
Yeah, I mean it's something you have to consistently think about, and most likely, or it's probably easier to go literally live in a cabin in the woods with no phone and no utilities. Hey, there we go.
Live in a cabin with no phone.
Much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We do appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, it's probably less energy intensive to live in a cabin in the woods and cut your firewood every day and make the drive into town and pay with cash and stuff like that. So.
I do know that if I quit this, that if I wasn't doing this job, I wouldn't have X anymore. I would get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's too important for my job, but otherwise I wouldn't use it.
I signed up for Twitter in 2009 and I've been on it consistently since.
So I deleted I had one in 2009 as well, and it was literally nothing but just talking about movies and TV shows that I liked. And eventually I deleted it, and then I had to start a new one right after, because then we started doing the show, and it was just impossible to aggregate news as fast without having it. So, all right, Chief Corey Anderson says, Phil, the Vault. All that remain. I'm assuming he means Baltimore. The Baltimore All That Remains show is awesome.
Oh yes.
It's like this. Is what I'm saying. Everyone thinks I can't read, and they're right. But it's not during the super chats that it's my fault. Okay. The Vault means nothing to anyone.
Look, I've sent super chats on the the YouTube app, and that thing is it's terrible the way that spell check
Yeah,
does, and
it almost doesn't spell
predictive
check.
texting and stuff. It's a nightmare trying to send super chats on that thing.
He says, the Baltimore All That Remains show is awesome. 2 questions. Do you always perform in a jacket, and did you bring your family on tour with you?
No, the family stayed home. She actually went to Florida and spent some time with her mom and dad. And I don't always start with a jacket, but this jacket never makes it through the whole
No,
show.
I can imagine it never would.
I'll get 2 or 3 songs through, and then it's got to go. So
Okay, so for instance, I actually skate a lot outdoors in the winter. I will go skate rails and ledges outdoor in the winter. Hoodie starts on, hoodie eventually comes off, the more movement you have.
Yeah.
Shane H. Wilder says, I meant to mention one of the other classical artists / Ninja Turtles. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Raphael, Donatello, Michelangelo.
There you go.
All right. Make sure we're caught up with everything. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today, and I want to invite you to please come join the show with us tomorrow live, not at 3 p.m. Eastern, but at 2 p.m. Eastern. Me and Mary are going to be celebrating episode 1100 of this show.
There you
go. It is important, I think, to do, if you do 5 shows a week, it adds up quickly, but it's still, we've been doing this show for quite a while, and I think it's important to celebrate those milestones that you make it through. And I hope you guys will join us tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We want you there. Phil, where can they find you?
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. You can also check out my Patreon. That's at Phil That Remains. The band is All That Remains. You can check our music out on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Pandora, YouTube, Spotify, and Deezer. Don't forget, The Left Lane is for crime.
Perfect. If you guys want to follow me, I'm on Instagram and X at Brett Dastovic on both of those platforms. PCC is live 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, which is, of course, noon Pacific. Tonight, I will be joining Phil on IRL, it looks like.
We think so.
Yes. Carter sent me a message. So it looks like I'm going to be sitting second or third chair there again tonight. I was called in. I'm the B team or the C team. They pull me off the bench every once in a while.
No, you're not.
So you guys should join us there tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. The audio version of our podcast is on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, and Spotify. If you would like to listen rather than just watch our show, you can also rate and review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, which is a great way to help us out. If you want to follow us on social media, we are on Twix at popculture_show, Facebook at Pop Culture Crisis, Instagram at Pop Culture Crisis Pod. One more super chat here from Not That John Stewart says, the way around the Apple predictive rewording is to type it out in normal chat, which seems less dumb about it, then cut it and paste it into super chat. That's big brain thinking there. All right, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you back here on this channel tomorrow, 2 p.m. for episode 1100. We will see you there. Bye, guys.